that time again. Prime Days. During these special times of year, let us not forget the real reason behind the season. That big daddy of a bot, Optimus Prime. I'm Victor, and straight out of the Gen Experience, the father figure no one saw coming. The unexpected representation of the ultimate dad. If your dad was a semi-truck. And even when he wasn't. Let's celebrate 40 years of Optimus Prime. It may not solve any daddy issues, but clicking that subscribe will offer you more from the Gen Experience. Just like there's more to Prime, a truckload more.
Transform and roll out!
Let's just get this out of the way first. Yeah, I cried. And what of it? I couldn't hold back the tears. No matter how I tried, my eyes welled up as fast as the lump grew in my throat. How many of you are man enough to say the same thing? It came out of left field, the on-screen death and the tears. I hadn't gone to the theater expecting any of it, but there it was, nevertheless, stifling the sound I held back. I couldn't let my brother see me lose it right there in the Cineplex. But it was true. It was 1986 and they killed him. 2 years after his debut, Optimus Prime was dead. And then they all just moved on. For the rest of us, it was a little harder. Thank God Gen Xers were built to handle such things. Sad is an understatement. Devastating, to be honest. Luckily, our generation had been preparing for the pain of death and loss from an early age. We weren't shielded from this kind of thing. We faced it head-on regularly in our media growing up and learned how to work through it. No, we weren't scarred for life or got PTSD. Optimus Prime was just a cartoon character after all. Or was he? So why was a generation so affected by this? Optimus Prime's 1984 toy was being cancelled in 1986 to make way for a new wave of Transformers to replace him, and other original characters who were rapidly bumped off in the movie. New action figures were taking over store shelves, and with originals being discontinued, there is nothing more final than killing them off to make way for new characters. Well, there was probably several ways, but they chose the absolute, the finality of death. And oh, what a death. But as we've learned, death is only the beginning. And that's not just true of soap operas. Like many kids, I met Optimus Prime in the fall of 1984. However, I first met his arch-rival Megatron when a kid at school brought a boxed action figure of the Decepticon leader back from summer vacation. Can you imagine bringing a toy that looks like a Waffle P-38 to grade school today? Yeah, I think not. Not a good idea. This kid had been to Japan with his father, and I was fascinated by the Japanese writing on the black and purple box. After being told a little exposition of what I was looking at, I also learned that a new cartoon series about these characters, these Transformers, had just begun. It's not like new cartoons had preview trailers. Kids had few outlets to learn about this stuff. Now nothing was going to stop me from discovering everything possible about these new and exciting characters and their unique toy gimmick of transforming from a robot into a variety of alt modes. Transformers More Than Meets the Eye was a 3-part miniseries that first debuted fall of '84. After those first 3 episodes, the remaining 13 of Season 1's 16 total would run its course weekly on Saturday mornings, the only time the Transformers were part of our weekend TV ritual. The series would then expand to the required number of episodes to turn to syndication. At the start of the second season, the show moved to its permanent home. Leaving Saturday mornings to the more traditional fare, the Transformers joined He-Man and G.I. Joe for weekday after-school animated violence and the new toy marketing to kids business model, as that regulation can of worms had just been opened. I wasn't going to miss a single episode of these exciting commercials disguised as epic adventures. All other shows, even Masters of the Universe, took a momentary backseat as I was completely obsessed with all things Transformers and their patriarch, Optimus Prime. This fall marks the 40th anniversary of the Transformers American debut. Optimus looks great for 40, and this is just another reason to make Prime Day a red-letter day on your calendar. It was during those first 2 years, seasons 1 and 2 of the cartoon, that the personality of Optimus Prime became clear. Prime radiated something beyond leadership, a charisma we could feel, even if we as kids didn't even know what that meant. A powerful presence demanding attention while remaining kind and thoughtful throughout. While Optimus could be angry, he was fair. Even when stern, he handled it with understanding and always operated selflessly. His calm thoughtfulness in every situation allowed us to imagine going into battle with him. We would follow him anywhere, and often pretended to do just that on the playground. Like any of his soldiers, Optimus would have your back. We could count on him. Like the father of the Autobots, countless 80s kids recognized his strength and grace, and in a time of increasing divorce, put him on a pedestal as a surrogate father. We spent time together every day after school. Prime represented a father figure that might be missing from someone's life, or embodied the characteristics of the ultimate dad you either dreamed yours to be or held yours up to, like I did. Optimus Prime was the father we may never have had, but always would. An unlikely father found in this big hunk of metal, a depiction of the perfect dad. And that dad was a freaking truck. Not just any truck, but a huge MFing cab-over Kenworth K100 semi-truck with trailer unit. This was his given alt mode disguise on Earth, towering over many of the other Autobots. Although his robot mode came from the cab itself, the trailer portion was a nice little battle station. Well, at least the toy was. For the show, this magical attachment was shown unhitching and veering out of view, or appearing as necessary during the few times it or its components were needed at all. Even though we came to see Optimus, his alt mode was still badass when careening out of Mount St. Hilary and across the Oregon desertscape of the original series. The genuine way he was written, with a profile created by Marvel editor Bob Budiansky at first for the comic and then carried into the animated series, made for a consistent characterization any viewer could identify. Optimus Prime was a character who responded with authenticity and consideration for all things, which was still very valued at the time. No matter how bonkers the situation, Prime took it seriously. Every original Transformer action figure came with a motto as part of their tech specs on the back of their packaging, something to give you an idea of the character's personality. The writers might have had Optimus Primes on repeat in their head, as they rarely veered off course when depicting the imposing good guy's credo.
Freedom is the right of all sentient beings.
Optimus Prime was a character that never hesitated to put himself in harm's way to demonstrate that very ideal. And as kids, we not only noticed, but we began the hero worship that was endearing this icon to the world. Each day after school, the episodic adventures of the Transformers took the battle to new and thrilling places, and rarely got mired down in any long-running story arcs, or better or worse. Even with that handicap, they were able to expand upon and clearly define the characteristics of Optimus Prime throughout the series, even if the villains were more interesting in many ways. And the new characters they introduced to sell action figures were bright and shiny. You wouldn't be caught dead rooting for them when Optimus came on screen. You were always backing up Prime in his efforts to thwart his foes. Optimus was not afraid of a good battle, but he also had a sense of humor. On occasion, you might catch his lighthearted nature with surprising comic quips, or action that developed him into a more complex and well-rounded character, giving us another reason to love the big guy. Idolized as a father figure, we didn't want to relate to Prime. We looked up to him, wanted to emulate him. He had become a respected role model, and the world, young and old, began to recognize the name Optimus Prime. Prime's larger-than-life persona of actions and words that exhibited courage and bravery was emphasized in no small part due to his distinct low vocal intonation. This is completely thanks to the man who brought Optimus to life, Peter Cullen. Cullen is a god in the voice actor arena. No doubt every single one of you have heard this man's familiar vocal talent. If not performing Optimus Prime from 1984 through the present, for 18 years you heard his sad but lovable vocalization of the melancholy but endearing donkey Eeyore in Winnie the Pooh.
Thank you.
Don't mention it. What you looking for?
Oh, we're looking for Eeyore.
Didn't know he was so popular.
Yeah, you're never going to hear one without thinking of the other now, are you? Even before Optimus, Peter was the narrator for the beginning of Voltron, as well as the Gold Lion. His voice marketed countless Transformer toy commercials and even other plastic playthings. Cullen was also the first Westerner to give a voice to Mario in the Donkey Kong cartoon series on Saturday's Supercade. Don't forget to check out my show on that Saturday morning experience via the link in the description. There was Monterey Jack from the Rescue Rangers, even Carr, the villainous enemy to Kit from Knight Rider.
Ringmaster, I scan no such person.
Avenger in Dungeons & Dragons, and the sound effects for both the Sonny and Cher show and the original Predator. We heard Optimus echo throughout our ears and take up residence in our brain throughout the 1980s. A decorated performer, the 82-year-old actor has shared his story of the voice of Optimus Prime and how it was shaped on a number of occasions.
My brother Larry, a captain in the Marine Corps, had returned from Vietnam. I'm auditioning as a truck. He did the same thing. Evidently, he's a hero truck. He's a hero. And his face got somber, and he said, Peter, if you're going to be a hero, be a real hero. Don't be a Hollywood hero type with all the BS and all the yelling and screaming and trying to be tough. My name is Optimus Prime. And the softness in his advisory tone was significant, and so the words just rolled off my tongue. I'm from the planet Cybertron. I walked out and getting into the car, and I said, I wish Larry had been here. I think he would have been proud of me, because I think I nailed it. I really think I've nailed the character, because it was just Larry. And 2 weeks later, my agent called me up and said, oh, Peter, remember that Transformers thing, the truck? And he said, yeah. He said, you got the part of Optimus Prime. I said, I do? He says, yeah, and you also have another part called Ironhide? What's this Ironhide? I said,
Hold it. Until we get your identities unscrambled, I'll give the orders. Autobots, transform. Roll out for the energy crevice.
The unmistakable and fitting vocals of this revered character, alongside the writing from his Marvel comic book incarnation and cartoon appearances, developed a pop culture legend that remains a positive example to kids from the Gen experience and even, surprisingly, today's young people. Cullen wasn't to blame for what came next. After the first 2 seasons, the summer of 1986 would culminate in an event no one could have imagined. A favorite cartoon and toy franchise had become larger than life, as evident by their live appearances at Universal Studios Hollywood, among other things. This fame warranted a feature film theatrical debut, even before He-Man got his own in 1987. On August 8th, allowing it to still be fresh in our minds when we returned to school, Transformers the movie premiered, and I was all about it. Set to a rockin' heavy metal inspired soundtrack. Get it? Heavy metal. The movie has a decidedly darker tone than the television series. The detailed visuals of Toei Animation's feature film style gave it a leg up over its small screen predecessor. The film features one non-stop action-packed sequence after another, and shockingly, the death of several major characters, including our own daddy, Optimus Prime. I don't believe Hasbro even fathomed what they had just done. Peter had no idea of the impact Optimus Prime had on the world. He was never given any of the fan letters. After the film effectively brought on the loss of innocence to millions, Cullen could not avoid the backlash of distraught parents who were enraged that their child had suddenly, and without warning, lost their best friend during an animated movie. It was then Peter Cullen knew the power of the Big Red Rig, and he would soon be called upon to reprise his role. Season 3 of the ongoing Transformers adventures was all set to debut in the fall, with the fresh faces found in the film taking center stage as well as space on the toy shelves, since older characters had been, retired. Producers, surprised at the backlash of kids and families leaving the theater that summer in shock over the death of Optimus Prime, had to do a little creative reimagining. Forced to comply to the outcry, writers temporarily revived the character for a single episode in Season 3 called Dark Awakening. But that Optimus was more like the Pet Cemetery version of our favorite father.
Well, sometimes that is better. The person you put up there ain't the person that comes back.
Initially, this was intended to be his final appearance, but it just wasn't enough. After fan requests continued, The Return of Optimus Prime, a 2-part episode, was produced for the end of Season 3. The original ending of Dark Awakening was then altered in reruns to tease the actual return of the character, and ultimately, Optimus took his rightful place once and for all to lead the Autobots in the whopping 3 episodes that made up Season 4, and the final appearance of the original American cartoon series. Of course, this was far from the end of the story. The franchise, and our faithful leader, would continue. Whether in merchandise or media, the Transformers product is one that has never been on hiatus, just in varying levels of visibility and success. Japan continued the animated series for years, and it would provide tons of additional lore and more Optimus Prime, long known in that country as
Breaker Big Ben, this here's Steph again, and you want back off of them go-go girls? About 10, Roger, about 5 miles or so, yeah, them hogs is getting in.
Convoy. The US would eventually begin to air their own versions of new and original Transformer cartoons, starting with Beast Wars, but with a new cast of characters. Other incarnations that followed did star Optimus Prime in a variety of new designs that more often than not were variations of the original. The imagery of the familiar truck was one that was ingrained in pop culture and forever connected to Optimus Prime. It could never be completely erased, not even during that short time he appeared as a bat. What had changed was the voice. It wasn't until the first Bayverse Transformers movie in 2007 we would hear the absent Peter Cullen vocals again. At the onset of the live-action franchise, fans made it known they wanted Peter, as well as Frank Welker, the original voice of Megatron, and Fred from Scooby-Doo, to reprise their roles as the eternal arch-rivals. Although he had to audition, Michael Bay did honor everyone by awarding Peter Cullen the live-action voice he deserved. One of the only things Bay did right. Sadly, Frank did not return for his run, but he wasn't done portraying old Buckethead Megatron just yet. And with that, he was back. Peter Cullen still pulls off that powerful performance in more current reimaginings of the Transformers story, in shows like Transformers Rescue Bots, Transformers Prime, and Robots in Disguise. His portrayal in the premiere season of Transformers Prime, my personal favorite of any new treatment to these legendary characters, earned him a nomination for a 2011 Daytime Emmy Award in the Outstanding Performer in an Animated Program category, cementing his place in the pop culture zeitgeist. Whether a bat or a fire truck, Optimus Prime's character has remained intact. His moral compass pointing true north, he rarely is depicted straying from the charismatic and selfless leader he was known as to millions of young people decades ago, even as his form has had some interesting variations. The Transformers have a rich history, a franchise that has never stayed down for long. Prime and the Transformers have had the longevity that makes for legendary pop culture. They are in the pantheon of thousands of other brands, IPs, franchises, and characters who stand the test of time and demonstrate they will last much longer than any of us, or anything today's generation can muster. The Transformers, and even more so, Optimus Prime, were no flash in the pan. He is remembered and will be remembered as the father to an entire generation. And that, my friends, is why we celebrate Prime Day. Sort of. For me, I will celebrate 40 years of the Transformers and their famous leader by maybe adding another piece to my extensive action figure collection. For you, please consider checking out countless more shows here on the channel and click like and subscribe for more wonderful reminders of just what amazing things were products of the Gen experience, like Optimus Prime. Just make sure to celebrate. Thanks for watching, and until next time.
Autobots, transform and roll!
No matter how many times I see it, it's always outrageous.